Folks, this hangout's about a variety of subjects, a couple that are kind of dear to my heart. The species problem, the deity of Christ, and the second death. Anybody's welcome to join, and you're welcome to the microphone, as long as you don't try to prevent other people from talking endlessly, or endlessly, I should reword that, endlessly try to prevent someone from talking. So we should have some interesting discussion if anybody's interested in joining. Just a little bit of information about the species problem. The species problem is the understanding amongst uh, biological scientists, zoologists, biologists, whatnot, that it's very difficult, if not impossible, to define what constitutes a species. Now, evolutionists will argue with you that it's no difficulty whatsoever. There's no difficulty in defining a species. And that's really not true. That's disingenuous. It is true that the species problem is a persistent problem. Whenever in science an idea is labeled as such and such problem, it's done so because it is a problem. That means they don't have the answer. It's not solved. And so there's the horizon problem in astronomy and the species problem. These are problems because the secular camp does not have a conclusive argument to make a case for one way or another regarding the subject. And so the species problem is persistent because the differences between creatures often results in nothing more than variations within a kind. And that's the truth. That's biblical truth. And the evolutionists have encountered this problem with their theory. So their theory runs into the truth and then it stops like a brick wall. How do we get past this truth that creatures produce variations of a kind? And so they call it the species problem because the types of differences between so many kinds of creatures in this world, with one species can be quite great and another rather limited. And so they'll observe that organisms are able to change in very limited ways, such as colors or patterns and whatnot, or size, and yet it still anatomically fully very much the type of creature or kind that we consider it to be. And so they have problems. Well, how far does ever variation go to where we can call it a different species? Is it justifiable to call it a different species because it has a different color or a different pattern, or is a different size, or even its skull is a different shape? And so it persists in biology as a problem. How do you define a species? Where do we draw the line and say that this creature is a different species from that? Now, whenever evolutionists publish their in the media, they're very quick to proclaim that this is a speciation event and this creature has produced a new species. But then, if you corner an evolutionist, a biologist, or a zoologist and ask him to explain to you, can you define for me how the criteria by which you determine exactly what constitutes one species and the difference between it and another, they're at a loss and they'll come up with this. They'll explain, well, there's this species problem and it can be wishy-washy. It's difficult. It's not an exact science, you see. So what it is their evolution theories coming up against the truth, which is the creatures of a kind produce variation. But the evolutionists are really quick to point to variations within a kind and declare them to be completely different species at the same time. So it's a little bit hypocritical. Well, it's very actually hypocritical. Uh, and so really what speciation is, what the evolutionists call speciation, is actually nothing more than variation of the created kind. But they'll take variations of a kind and then argue because life varies, thus it's evolving. And ultimately, just imagine in your imagination, in your mind, that this process of slight variation, continues enough, and it'll eventually become anatomical. I mean, we can see it's only size, shape, color, and pattern right now, but just use your imagination, and you'll see anatomical changes over time. See, that's where the evolutionism, that's where science hits the road with philosophy. It flips. It becomes the idea of evolutionism becomes philosophy, and then takes off from there like a bird with wings. Takes off. Phew, it's gone because now we can imagine. You see that the variations become new features, new structural designs. Don't you see it happen? See, it launches into the abyss of philosophy. And that's what evolutionism is comprised of. I'm going to be silent on the mic for a few minutes. Now, a little bit about the deity of Jesus Christ. I was in a Pal Talk chat room debating with some atheists and whatnot earlier this evening. And Pal Talk is really a place where the people who only go to Pal Talk and never go public in Google Hangouts or other social media public forums and debate are really sort of the weakest kind. They swallow a certain set of lies and they put them forth, regurgitate them over and over. But I like to go in there just for fun sometimes and refute them. And I was in a Pal Talk hangout earlier and debating about 9 people, a couple of which claimed to be Christians, about the deity of Christ. Some of them were atheists and others were Christians claiming that Jesus Christ is not deity, that he's not God manifest in the flesh. I find that very disturbing. And I think it's based upon somebody's refusal to accept that Christ is who he says he was, because they don't, it's a little too personal. If Christ is God manifest in the flesh and took the cross for us, then it becomes too personal. And they can't deal with that idea. And that, they deserve to be on the cross and not Christ. They just want to think that God remotely, sacrificed his son, and that over there is what happened. Oh, it's way over there. See, but now if Christ is God, then it gets no more personal than that, because they're supposed to be having a relationship of some kind with God as a Christian. And if he's the one that they're talking to in their soul that went to that cross for them, got a problem. That's a little too personal. I can't deal with that, because that means I'm the one that deserves to be on that cross and not him. They don't like that idea, so they deny the deity of Jesus Christ. That's my personal philosophy on it. And I think it's very sad that people would call themselves Christians and then deny the deity of Jesus Christ. It's disturbing, actually. And it really throws the entire gospel of Jesus Christ completely away. In fact, the entire Bible is worth nothing, and the gospel of Jesus Christ is worth nothing unless Jesus Christ is God manifest in the flesh as he says he is, and as the entire Bible declares him to be. So Christianity is meaningless unless it's true. But there are still people who say it isn't true and call themselves Christians. Now, the wonderful news of this is that God cares enough about us to have done that very thing. Imagine yourself going to the cross for somebody else. Now, imagine yourself doing it for 1,000 people. Now, wait a minute. Imagine yourself doing it for 1,000,000 people. Oh, but not that. 1,000,000,000. Wait a minute. Billions of people. See, this is the great love of God, his great compassion, that he was willing to do that for everyone who's a sinner. who put their trust in him. That's astonishing. The character of God is unapproachable. His goodness is so far outside of the human box. It's just unfathomable. It really won't fit into our minds. Humans actually cannot conceive of the greatness of God and his charity and his love. They just can't. He would be willing to do that for us. It's astonishing. But it's a little too personal if God's the one that took on flesh and did this for us, for some. And so they deny the deity of Jesus Christ because that makes it too personal. So anyway, that's another subject I'd be willing to discuss tonight. I'll be off the mic. So as to the deity of Jesus Christ, the Bible's clear on it. Jesus Christ was clear on it. The passages that prove that Jesus Christ is deity are extensive. There are very many. Matthew 10:33. But whosoever shall deny me before men, him also will I deny before my Father, which is in heaven. Now, why is that? Well, it's because they're one and the same. Revelation 5:1, John 8:23 through 27, John 20:27 through 28, Mark 2:5, uh, 2 John 1:7, 1 John 4:2 through 3, 1 Timothy 3:16, 1 Timothy 6:15 through 16, 1 John 18, Philippians 5 through 8, Isaiah 8:8, Isaiah 7:14, Isaiah 9:6, John 8:23 through 20 through 4, and Exodus through 24, and Exodus 3:14, John 10:27 through 31, Isaiah 48:13, Colossians 1:16, Matthew 26:63 through 65, Philippians 2:5 through 7. These are all passages that prove the deity of Christ. Deuteronomy 24:16, Proverbs 24:12, Ezekiel 18:20, Colossians 11:15, Revelation 20:12, Revelation 20:13, Romans 3:22 through 25. 1 John 2, these are from my personal notes in my computer. I have text files saved that provide all kinds of information. I've saved these over the years. 1 John 2:1 through 5. 1 John 4:10. Genesis 1:1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 John 3:2. John 6:38. Hebrews 1:1 through 14. Colossians 1:16. 1 John 1:1 through 2. Matthew 16:27. Let's see. Isaiah 42:8. Ezra 16:67. Exodus 3:14. John 3:13. John 17:5. 1 Thessalonians 4:16. Revelation 1:1 through 11. Revelation 22:13 through 16. Hebrews 1:8 through 10. Matthew 1:23. Luke 16. Mark 2:7. Mark 9:2. Luke 7:48. John 20:27. John 1:1. 1 John 5:7. John 1:14. John 1:1. John 8:58. John 10:30. 1 John 2:22 and 23. John 14:8. John 10:33. Colossians 2:8 through 9. Psalms 98:1. 1 Corinthians 15:54 through 55. Colossians 1:16 through 20. Matthew 16:27. Revelation 20:12 through 13. 1 Peter 1:18 through 22. Luke 7:16. Mark 61 through 64. 2 John 7. John 14:10. 1 John 4:2. I mentioned that one. John 10:27 through 31. Romans 3:23 through Matthew 28:18. 1 Timothy 3:16, I think I mentioned that. 2 Peter 3:9, Revelation 1:9, John 3:13, Matthew 22:41 through 46, Jude 1:1, 2 Peter 1:17, James 3:9, 2 John 1:3, John 17:5. These are all passages that prove the deity of Jesus Christ. Hey, Chris, how
Hey,
are you?
what's going on?
Oh, I'm all right. How about you?
Well, I'm doing good. First time
That's good.
going to hang out.
That's good. I don't know if I know you. Have I met you?
I've sent you a few things on Google Plus. Uh,
Have
I,
you?
yeah, I asked a couple weeks ago about maybe just doing a hangout explaining the creation account in Job compared to the some of the scientific findings that occurred later.
Hmm. Oh, it's a great subject. I love the book of Job. Job 38, for example,
Hmm.
is chock full of statements relating to the flood of Noah. It's just really amazing. But that's an interesting subject. You know, if you want to talk about that, I'll be happy to do that if that's what you'd like to do.
Completely up to you. I'm limited on time. I saw you were live and just wanted to jump in and just get this experience for once.
Great. Okay, so Book of Job. What about the Book of Job was it relating to the creation that you wanted to discuss? A particular chapter or something? Because most of it is, dialogue between some naysayers, and Job. Guys are trying to convince Job that he's guilty of his sin is why he's suffering, and relatively little of it is speaking about the creation. Were you speaking of Job 38 or some other chapter or?
About when God was kind of scolding Job, saying, Were you there
Right,
when
that's Job 38.
right, exactly, Job 38, and
Yeah,
like when he talks about opening the springs of the deep and
yeah.
the wind and all that stuff, and how how God laid that out and revealed that He was the one that did that,
Hmm.
and then later in modern time science, we're finding this stuff out now. It shows that it was true that many years ago.
It really does. To me, Job 38 is one of the most fascinating, impactual chapters of the entire Bible because, I'm a creation nut, right? I love creation and how science proves creation true and evolution false. And
Hmm.
so I'm a nut all about creation. And so the chapter 38 in the book of Job just really fires me up because it is absolutely astonishing. Like you said, it mentions a number of things scientifically that it's not that man didn't know them, it's that man had no means by which to have known them in
Right,
the day in which Job. I mean, it was not even possible for man to have discovered them in those days. Impossible for
right.
man to have known these things. That chapter in Job mentions Hadley cells in the upper atmosphere. It mentions the fact that the ice age, the mechanisms that caused the ice age, the very mechanisms. It mentions the fact that the mountains of the earth are rolled and folded, and we should look at them and see the strata there are, and we do. It mentions a lot of crazy things, hydrothermal vents on the ocean floor, a lot of things that just it was not only not known but impossible for man to have discovered in those days.
Hmm.
It's amazing. So you want to go through the book of Job together? Is
Yeah,
that what you
sure,
like?
that's fine.
Okay, great. Okay, so Job 38, 1. Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, who is this that darkeneth counsel by his words without knowledge? Gird up now thy loins like a man, for I will demand thee of thee, and thou answer me. Where wast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? Declare if thou hast understanding. Oh boy, God is really, he's really, kind of being hard on Job right now. He's
Yeah.
being kind of hard on him. But he loves Job, and he's going to prove that. He says, "Who hath laid the measures thereof, if thou knowest? Or who hath stretched a line upon it?" Well, he's asking Job there, do you know exactly the breadth of the earth? Well, I do, Job. You don't, but I do. He says, whereupon are the foundations thereof fastened? Or who laid the cornerstone thereof? I think this passage here is referring to the foundations of the earth seem to imply to me the mantles of the earth, the lower mantle,
Mm-hmm.
which is somewhat believed to be a slightly viscous but extremely dense material. Now, the foundation of the earth is what everything above it rests upon, right? Like a foundation for a house
Mm-hmm.
is what everything on the house rests upon. So the foundation of the earth would be the deep, dense material upon which all the potentially moving material above it would rest. And I think that is the mantles of the earth. And so then he says, when the morning stars sang together, that's the angels. Stars are often referred to as angels in the Bible. And the sons of God, again, we see the angels, shouted for joy. So the angels apparently stood fast and praised God, by singing when they watched him create the earth. They were astonished, and the heavens, they were astonished at God's power and his glory. And it says then, or who shut up the sea with doors when it brake forth, as it had issued out of the womb? Now we're talking about the flood of Noah.
Yep.
Now we're talking about the flood of Noah. Or who shut up the sea with doors? Now, interesting thing. If you look at the what scientists have discovered by studying the mid-oceanic ridges, which is, the Earth, for those listening who don't know, the Earth at the bottom of the sea, on the ocean floors, there's a crack that's a series of cracks that run around the Earth like the seam of a baseball. They go this way and that way. And one of them, the longest part, goes almost from Antarctica all the way up through the Atlantic Ocean, all the way up to beyond Iceland into the Arctic Circle. And along there, at its widest point there, it's close to 15 miles wide. And what scientists have discovered is that a massive amount of basalt rock has bowed up inside that crack and sealed it shut. Now, the evolutionist camp claims, well, this is just material that was volcanic that came out from there, but basalt is not necessarily volcanic. And so, that's not proven anyway. So here we see that we've got this massive amount of basalt rock that bowed up in the middle to shut it off, to seal this crack in the earth. And so this relates in my mind to this passage where it says, or who shut up the sea with doors? This is the basalt on the ocean floor. Now, I think it might be interesting to actually go to some images to show what I'm talking about here. Let me see here if I can find. Because I like to sometimes show exactly what it is that I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
The funny thing is that this is the disingenuous nature of the evolutionist camp. The images that they provide on the internet do not match what they know to be a fact scientifically, and it's absolute scientific fraud. It's fraud.
Mm-hmm.
They know that there is a massive amount of basalt that has filled up the gap in the mid-oceanic ridges to seal it off. They know that. But what they depict in these images that they put on the internet is as though there's a lot of semi-molten material pushing up between these, and that's not true at all. Now, let me show you one image here. This is from the secular camp. Let me see if I can screen share this.
Okay.
There it is. There. Now you see how red it is underneath that material?
Yeah.
At the very bottom. That's bogus. That is completely evolutionist assumption that volcanic material, the Earth is sitting on an ocean of volcanic material, the crust, and it's just willy nilly. I'll tell you this: I believe that if that material was red hot, that close to the surface of the Earth in the oceans, the surface of the Earth would be so hot no life would exist on this planet.
Hmm.
But that's how they're going to depict it in the pictures. They don't expect you to think for yourself. They just expect you to swallow. See? Think about it. If the entire Earth, right on up to that point, was molten hot red, how hot why would it suddenly cool down so rapidly to the surface?
It
It would.
couldn't. There's no way.
No way. It would be the surface of this planet would also be glowing hot and no life would exist on this planet. So you see how dishonest their artistic renditions of things is.
Hmm.
It's horrible. The ocean would be boiling right above that. It would be boiling. All right. So anyway, this cracked material that you see here is basalt. To the left and right, you see the crack in the Earth's crust called the mid-oceanic ridge is the material going down the middle. It's the basalt. The mid-oceanic cleft or crack there has been sealed off by a massive amount of basalt that has bowed up. Now the water. Notice that this image here is from the secular camp. This is not a creationist camp picture. Notice that the funny thing is they depict water. You see the blue right below the crust of the ocean floor
Hmm.
and the basalt. Isn't that telling? This
Hmm.
is exactly fits the creationist model of the hydroplate theory as put forth by Dr. Walt Brown. The continents were sitting on a sheath of water. And this is one of the reasons that we had runaway subduction and the continents accelerated away from each other when God split the oceans, the fountains of the deep open. So here we have the Bible saying, Job 38:8, or who shut up the sea doors when it brake forth, as if it had issued out of the womb? Well, there's the doors, the basalt, that shut the sea off, that sealed off the water and prevented it from coming forth. That basalt that bowed up right there. Okay. Now, verse 9. When I made the cloud a garment thereof, and the thick darkness a swaddling band for it. Now, during the flood, there was a massive amount of geologic activity.
Hmm.
Continents grinding themselves away across the earth. This melted massive amounts of material into a molten state because of the friction. So imagine you've got a landmass just the size of the state of Oregon, and it's moving at 35 miles an hour. What's happening under that massive chunk of material? A lot of friction. I
Hmm.
mean, it is literally grinding rock into a molten state. There would be so much weight and friction going on, right?
Hmm.
That's what happened all over the world during the flood. And so massive amounts of volcanic activity burst forth within months after the flood started. And so here we know that volcanoes spew ash into the sky and darken the sky. So this passage says, now notice that this passage comes right after that God split open the oceans, right?
Hmm.
And then he says, when I made a cloud, the garment there, and the darkness a swaddling band for it. In other words, swaddling band. A swaddling band would be something that wraps around and around and around. A thin piece of cloth, for example, that goes around something over and over. So we would have had global wind currents grabbing massive plumes of volcanic ash coming out of the earth, going around and around the earth during the flood, ultimately blacking out the skies and making the earth very cold, bringing on the ice age. So here we see, he says, when the morning stars sang together and sons of God shouted for joy, or who shut up the sea with doors when I break it, when it break forth, as it have issued out of a womb. Now that statement that it issued out of a womb is interesting. Remember that.
Okay.
What is this womb? What's the interior of the earth? He says, when I shut up the sea, the sentence subject is the sea. Shut up what? when I shut up the sea with doors,
Mhm.
when it brake forth, what broke forth the sea, as it had issued out of a womb. What was it? The sea. See,
Yep.
this sentence is all about the sea, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so the sea issued out of a womb. Now remember that because it's going to become important later on. It says, when I made a cloud, the garment thereof. The garment of what? The sea. Remember, we're still talking about the sea. When I made a cloud, the garment thereof, and the swaddling band for it, and break up it for it my decree place, and set bars and doors, and said, hitherto shalt thou come, but no further, and here shall thou prosway be stayed. Now, if you got this massive amount of basalt busting forth, that's like saying, well, you're not coming out anymore. That's it. You're sealed. Okay? And then it says, hast thou commanded the morning since thy days, and caused the day spring to know thy place? Now, the day spring is the edge of the earth, lighted by the sun, because the earth is a sphere. So when you will look out in the morning, you get out there and you're standing with your coffee and the sun's rising and you see the lighted edge of the earth, you're not looking at the very edge of the earth. You're looking at what edge of the earth is available to you according to where you are on the earth, right? You
Right.
might be looking at land that's 10 miles away, lighted by the sun, or 50 miles, 100 miles. But you're looking at what to you is a day spring, at least. But if you were to go up in space, 100 miles above the Earth's surface, you would see the real day spring of the Earth because you'd see it from space. And you would see the lighted edge of the entire Earth. So this is the day spring. So the Bible in this passage tells us clearly the Earth is a sphere because it mentions day spring, which
Mhm.
is the edge of the lighted Earth where the sun strikes it when the sun is coming around the Earth. If you look up the 1600s dictionary definition of word day spring, and that's what you'll see that it means. It means the lighted edge of the earth lit by the sun. So that's the old school definition for the word day spring. Remember, the King James Bible was written in 1611, so that's the definition they use.
Mhm.
And then it says that it might take hold of the ends of the earth, and the wicked be shaken out of it, as it was as turned to clay of as it is turned as clay to the seal, and they stand as a garment. Now, I'll be honest, I've never fully understood those passages. I've heard other creationists give explanations, and I was never satisfied with them. I don't quite understand those two passages. But moving on, and the wicked in their uh, and from the wicked their light is withholden, and the arm of shall be broken. Well, I guess you could say that certainly a product of the flood. Hast thou entered into the springs of the sea, or hast thou walked in search of the depth? Now that's very fascinating passages because what they're asking is God is asking Job basically, have you walked along the ocean floors into the very deep, the very abyss of the ocean to see that there's water bursting forth down there? And I can provide you the Hebrew that proves that.
Mhm.
But for time's sake, I'll leave it out. I've got a video on my YouTube channel that explains that, and using the actual Hebrew language of the Old Testament. And the word there, it says, in search of the depth. The word depth there is tahome, which means the very great deep, the abyss. It doesn't mean just down, it means way down. It means the deep, deep, right? The very bottom, the very depth. Okay, so God is asking Job, Job, did you walk the ocean floors to the very depths of the ocean? Of course, we know that's impossible. And what we just seen there, the springs of the sea. The springs there is means in Hebrew bursting forth. So God is asking, have you walked the ocean floor to see the bursting forth of water that's in the very depths of the ocean? Of course, that would be impossible. Nobody can do that then. They can't do it now, right? Not a human being can't walk the ocean floor, right? They were discovered in 1977, but the Bible told us they were in 1450 or so BC. Amazing. Isn't
Mhm.
that incredible?
Yeah. It really is. I mean, I just I can't for the life of me see how the evolutionists they can just be so blind to the fact. And I listen to a lot of your videos, and you just hear them say, "Well, I'm not an expert in this. Well, I'm not an expert in that." I mean, you don't have to depend fully on an expert. That's what happened to the Catholic Church when they wouldn't let the Bible be translated. The believers were led like sheep to the slaughter. And I mean, you got to at some point think to yourself, I don't need to rely on them. I can do my own research and see the truth, but they're so bullheaded they won't open a Bible and actually sit and read it.
Yeah. Yeah, the Bible does prove to anybody willing to listen to God. The Bible absolutely does prove itself to be the
Yes.
inspired word
He,
of God.
he that have a
Uh,
ear, let him hear.
what's that?
He that hath an ear, let him hear.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good passage quote, brother. That's exactly right. If you have an ear to hear, you will learn by reading the Bible that it truly is the inspired word of God. It will impress that upon you.
Yes,
It,
sir.
it will. It will tell you that you will come away from reading the Bible that you are reading the words of God because it will just let you know. You will know it.
Yep.
And that's exactly right, brother. I love that passage. And Jesus quoted that passage.
Yep.
I love that. What was that? Isaiah? Was that Isaiah where he said, "He has who has an ear, let him hear"? I think it's Isaiah, and Jesus quoted that. I think more than once. I think he did twice.
Yeah.
And I think that's awesome because I love that. He who has an ear, let him hear. In other words, if you're willing to listen, you'll get truth. But if you shut your heart, your mind follows that, well, you're not going to learn anything.
Exactly.
You're just not going to learn.
Nope.
But if your heart's open, I'll teach you. And
Mhm.
there's a built in statement of God's grace right there
Yep.
because he's saying, listen, if you'll just listen to me, I'll teach you. I'm open to
Hmm.
teaching you. I'm willing
Yep.
to teach you. In
It,
that statement right there. Isn't that amazing how we find the gospel of Jesus Christ and the grace of God filled all through the Bible? It just permeates the Bible. It saturates
yes.
it.
It's just that carnal selfishness of man that wants everything to do with them and nothing to do with believing in a higher power that they need to succumb to. They want to
That's
think that
right.
they're the top of the earth,
Yeah.
and everything revolves around them, and it's just not the case. And when you do come to that realization, it's such a humbling experience that there is I do have a creator. I do have someone to worship. Let's
Yeah.
put me aside and run that with that agenda and just commune with him. And it's magnificent.
It is, and one of the most one of the beautiful thing about it is that not only is God all this power and
Right.
authority
Yep.
and justice, but He's so full of love and mercy and pity and compassion and charity as well,
Hmm.
and that's why His word is the way it is. When people are non-believers, they read the Bible, all they can see is God shaking a fist.
Yep.
They don't see all the love and compassion and mercy that's in there. They
Right.
just can't see it because they're not listening and they don't have an ear to hear, like you said.
Hmm.
They see God as somebody who just wants to judge them
Right.
instead of somebody who instead of God who wants to give them paradise. And it's so easily available. What did Jesus say to the man on the cross? The one said to the other, "Leave this man alone. He's done nothing wrong." Fine. He said, "Jesus, remember me when you go into your kingdom." And Jesus looked into that man's heart and saw the truth that he believed upon him, that
Yep.
he knew he had the authority,
Hmm.
that he knew he was the answer to man's salvation. And he saw that in Jesus. And Jesus said unto him, "For that I tell you today, you will be with me in paradise." Just that quick. Saved him from his sins on
Yep.
a cross.
Yep.
Bang! Isn't that amazing? Hey,
Hmm.
Chris, I'm going to take about a 1 minute break. I'm going to run to the restroom and I'll be right back.
Not a problem.
Okay, I'm back.
Okay.
I was in a hangout not long ago where some people were complaining about easy believism. I think that's a little bit wishy-washy subject, but I think the subject is a little bit murkier than a lot of people would have you believe. And I think God readily forgives and saves, and then the hardship that comes in some people's lives from actually following God is a tricky, sort of a gravelly experience for people throughout their lives. Doesn't mean they're not saved, though. See, and the evidence I would point to that was the thief on the cross.
Yep.
Did that thief on the cross spend 20 years knowing the Savior?
No.
No, he didn't know him for 5 minutes.
Right.
He's put on the cross, nailed with him, and the guy says to him, "Look, leave Jesus alone. He's done nothing wrong." He says, "Master, forgive me. Remember me when you come into your kingdom." And Jesus turned to him and saved him from his sins just like that. Bam.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So a lot of people would label that easy believism. Hey,
No.
don't label it on me. Don't put that off on me. Take it up with Jesus.
Yep.
Okay? Take it up with him. He's the one that did it, not me. So don't complain to me.
Uh-huh.
I'm not what you would call a easy believism is, and I don't call myself a this is or that is or either other is.
Right.
But I'm just telling you what Jesus did, right, brother? That's
Yep.
what he did. He
Yep.
forgave him right there on the spot and gave him eternal life, right?
Right.
Sure did. Amen. Okay, so let's see where we left off in Job here. Uh, Genuine faith, I guess, is why someone's saved, not pretend faith, right? And the
Right.
cross,
Yep.
the guy on the cross had genuine faith. Jesus saw his heart. He knew the truth. He knew the man genuinely believed, and he gave him eternal life right there on the spot.
It's
Bam.
it's a heart issue, and it's definitely something that you cannot fake.
That's right, because God knows all. Yeah,
Yes. Yep.
exactly. Exactly, brother. That's it. God knows everything. You can't fake it. I love that. I
Nope.
love that.
You can't fake it, because even if you go through your whole life faking it, the end result is not going to be what you want it to be. It's eternal damnation. If your heart isn't right and in the right place, then I mean, really, you got to look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, why am I doing this at all?
Man, I love the way you think, Chris. Man, that's fantastic, man. Look, I'm going to your channel right now to see if I can add you to my favorites because I want you in my circles, man.
I have you
I
under
love the way you're not in my circles. Oh,
I
I'm
have
going to
you
add you right now.
under your Nephilim free account.
Okay, well, I'm going to add you under this one because
That's
I
fine.
love the way you think.
That's fine.
At least on this one, this subject. Yeah, we agree completely on that. No doubt. These people would complain about easy believism. Oh, come on, man. Look, Jesus forgave the guy in a minute flat. How long was he on the cross with the guy? Okay, they may have been hanging there for an hour.
Yeah.
Maybe. They might have been. But Jesus knew the man's heart, did he not?
Yep.
Did Jesus walk with that guy? Did he struggle with a guy over years and years and years?
Nope.
Well, not from what we can see. In reality, possibly.
Yeah.
Possibly while he was walking the earth, the man might have been drawn by the Father to the Son, for all we know. But what we know is he was forgiven in a flash. That's
Yep.
what we know. Okay, so let me see where we left off here. Okay, day spring here. Okay. Okay, let's see. Enter the springs of the sea. Okay, so next, verse 17. Have the gates of death been opened unto thee? Now that to me seems to imply, what is the difference between life and death? What does that passing mean?
Mm-hmm.
What is this transition that we go from death unto life? I mean, life unto death. What is happening there? God knows this. He knows everything because he created our spirit. And Job, of course, doesn't. And he says, or hast thou seen the doors of the shadow of death? So he's asking Job if he has ever returned to the dead and come back, I guess.
Yeah.
something like that, that she can come back and explain it to me, the one who made human souls and knows exactly what's going on. And then he says, "Hast thou perceived the breadth of the earth?" Again, we see a difference. Declarest thou knows. God clearly knows how wide the earth is,
Mm.
and he would know it every inch. If it were rotating, he would know from this inch to that, because God knows everything. There is nothing that surprises God. He knows all things. He's aware of everything. He says, "Where is the?" Now this passage is interesting. "Where is the way that light dwelleth? And as for the darkness, where is the place thereof? That thou should take it to the bound thereof, and thou should know the path to the house thereof." This is a statement that light travels distance over time.
Mhm.
Because, in the ancient world, everybody believed that light was instantaneous. Whenever you saw a light source, bang, it hit the, the place of incidence, which as I'm an ex-professional photographer, and incidence means that's where light strikes.
Right.
Wherever you point a flashlight at the wall, the place of incidence is where the light is striking the wall. That's the place of incidence. There's reflectance and there's incidence when it comes to light. And I know this from my professional photographic training. So it says here, "Where is the way that light dwelleth?" In other words, which is the way from where it is housed?
Mm-hmm.
And as for the darkness, where is the place thereof? In other words, can you tell me what is the exact difference between where light ends and then suddenly there is no light?
Yeah.
This is a kind of a statement of physics. Look, there's light right here. 1 nanometer later, there is no light. See? So God's telling us particle physics in the Bible. Then it says, "That thou should take it to the bound thereof." The bound would be the place of incidence, right? Where it strikes. "And thou should knowest the path to the house thereof." So what this passage is saying is, if you should walk the path of the light to where it strikes the wall, turn around and follow it back the path to the house from which it came, which is the flashlight, the batteries, the bulb, and the flashlight, right?
Yep.
So God is saying here, do you know these things? Do you know that you could follow light from where it comes out of this flashlight bulb to that wall, then turn around at the wall and come back to the house of the light, which is the bulb again? That's an explanation that light travels distance over time because a path takes time. It's
Yep.
not instantaneous. Secondly, it's also telling us that the true speed of light can only be measured as a two-way thing. You can't actually truly know the speed of light by measuring it from A to Z. You have to bounce it back to be able to measure it.
Yep.
So this is physics, way beyond man's understanding. This is like saying you can measure the speed of light because it's a particle and it's an energy at the same time. But you can only do it and if you travel from where it starts to where it bounces and back again.
Yep.
And that's a statement in the Bible, 1400 plus BC. Isn't that amazing?
Yes, it is.
That's just amazing. That just blows my mind. And even physicists today acknowledge you can't measure the speed of light unless you reflect it off of something. I mean, how are you going to measure the speed of light? What are you going to do? Get in a spaceship and run alongside the light beams that's going by and optically measure? You can't do it. You have to measure it from where it hits something and bounces back. Then you can calculate the speed of it.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't do it in a one-way trip. It has to be a two-way trip to measure the speed of light. And this passage tells us that light travels a path over time by striking an object and bouncing back. That's amazing.
Yep.
This is particle physics, 19th to 20th century technology in the Bible, 1400 plus BC. Amazing.
Yep. Yep.
Got any thoughts of your own?
Oh no, I mean, my mind's blown just as much as you are. I mean, all this stuff in here, it's just, you just can't get over it. And this is, the Bible is a book written to us, and this is explaining the creation of the earth. And I think that, this account here could be even more of an intimate account as what is in Genesis. And I mean, just explaining all this information, just bound for bound. I mean, just blowing away verse by verse. It's amazing to me.
It truly is. It rocks my world.
Yeah.
I I think, Chris, one of the most beautiful things that I've ever discovered was to understand that the Bible is truly the inspired Word of God, and that I could search it and I would never actually truly learn everything that it says because it's an unsearchable wisdom.
Hmm.
I think when I learned that the Bible was actually breathed by God, that to me was one of the most beautiful revelations. Because I had believed and I was a believer, and I believed that the Bible was about God and it was true stuff. But to learn that it was actually breathed into by God, that the words, the wisdom in it came from God into the heart and mind of the man who penned it down. That revelation to me was one of the most beautiful things I think I've ever learned in my life, because it opened up a whole world of understanding for me and trust in God.
Hmm.
And all right, so now we go to verse 21. Knowest thou it, because thou wast then born, or because the number of thy days is great? So God's mocking Job. You're immortal. You have X days on this earth, and you don't know everything. I'm eternal, right? And he says, hast thou entered into the treasures of the snow, or hast thou seen the treasures of the hail? Well, I think it might be controversial as to what exactly that means. The treasures, this could be considered clouds, right? Treasures of the snow, the place, the housing of thereof, and the hail too. So if that's true, then he's saying, have you gone up into the clouds? He says, the next passage says, which I reserved against the time of trouble, against the great day of battle and war. I'm not sure how that relates to the end times. I would like for somebody to point that out to me, because that's kind of interesting. It almost seems to allude that what the clouds or snow and hail are, in a way, there's a portion of this that's reserved unto the last day,
Yeah.
the great day.
My Bible references a verse for that, and it is, let's see, Revelation 16:21.
Ah,
See what,
read that for me, would you?
yeah, let me pull it up. And there fell upon men a great hail out of the heaven, every stone about the weight of a talent, and men blasphemed God because of the plague of the hail, for the plague thereof was exceedingly great.
Wow. Awesome. So here in 1400 plus BC, God is telling something that's going to happen in X AD.
Yep.
Amazing.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, so now he says here, by what way is the light parted which scattereth the east wind upon the earth? Now, that's an interesting statement, because again, we see a reference to particle physics and geology and uh, uh, what is the study of the atmosphere? I forgot that word just keeps eluding me.
Uh,
Um, uh, uh, Meteorology, yes. So we see the way the light is parted, which scattereth these winds upon the earth. The the earth, the sun's energy is what causes the wind patterns on the earth, the global wind patterns. And those patterns are influenced by the angle of the sun coming through the atmosphere of the earth. So, by what way is the light parted, which scattereth the east wind upon the earth? So, this is an explanation that light is causing wind patterns on the earth. And we know today that the sun's energy, its light, causes global wind patterns on this planet. Who hath divided a water course for the overflowing of waters, or a way for the lightning of thunder? Okay, so who hath divided a water course for the overflowing of waters? This, I think, would be a reference to the events of the flood, a water course for the overflowing. God, when he split the mid-oceanic ridge open, water flowed east and west out of that ridge in both directions. It flooded the continents. So that would be a course for the water, in my opinion. I might be wrong about my interpretation of this, but this, he says divided. That means to cleave, right? To make something. It seems to fit but I'm not exactly sure that's what it means. I think that is. Or a way for the lightning of thunder. A way. Now, what we know about lightning today is that when lightning takes place, the reason we hear thunder is because the electricity is so much electrical activity. There's so many trillions of electrons passing through the atmosphere that it literally displaces the air, and that creates a sonic boom. In other words, you have a bolt of electricity X inches wide, and when it comes forth, it does so at such speed that it forces the air apart for the electricity to go up through it, and that's what creates the sonic boom.
Hmm.
That's what makes thunder. Thunder is a sound wave created by electrical, massive amounts of electricity scoring tremendous speed through the atmosphere of the Earth. It displaces the air so fast that it creates a sonic boom. And so here we have an explanation that thunder is produced by lightning for physics reasons. Um, uh, then it says, to cause it to rain on the earth where no man is, on the wilderness where there is no man, to satisfy the desolate and the waste ground, and to cause the bud of the tender herb to spring forth. In other words, God has made a way for water to happen, rain. And that was the flood. See, prior to the flood, there was no rain. There was
No,
no
the,
hail.
the
There was
mist covered the earth.
That's right. It was a mist only. There was no such thing. There was none of this geologic activity.
Nope.
All this geologic activity is a result of the fact that the earth is completely screwed up now
Yep.
because of the flood. And so hail, snow, sleet, rain, all that, every landslide, every tsunami, every earthquake, all of that is a result of the flood. Every single bit of it. The earth was perfectly geologically stable prior to the flood. Now it's so unstable. So where he says, um, God is saying that He provided a way for there to be rain and whatnot. Well, how was that? Well, what have we been discussing? All these events related to the flood
Yep.
already, right? So He's saying all these things related to the flood, and now there's snow and sleet and hail. Well, it follows because it was the change to the earth that made snow, sleet, and hail, and earthquakes and landslides and volcanoes and all that possible. So now he mentions it after telling us that he split the earth open and flooded it, right? He's telling us the result is snow and ice and hail and sleet and rain, right? So see, it follows chronologically. It's following in this book, and he says, now here it is interesting. Um, he says, that it would satisfy the tender bird. He says, has the rain a father who hath begotten the drops of dew? So he's asking you, where did it all start? Where did it come from? And he says, oh, by the way, out of whose womb came the ice and the hoary frost of heaven? Who hath generated it?
Hmm.
So he's likening here the rain. He says, who has the rain have a father? Who hath begotten the drops of dew? Notice the reproductive word here, begotten. Has the rain have a father? Or who hath begotten the drops of dew, right? And then he goes on to say, out of whose womb, another reproductive word, came the ice, and the host, hoary host of heaven, who hath gendered it. See all these reproductive terms?
Yeah.
So is it saying he's saying, in other words, is the interior of the earth that is birthed forth and given birth to all of these things: rain, dew, uh, ice, frost of heaven. These things are all a product of the one single event. They have the same father. They were caused by the same thing, and out of the whose womb came the ice. Now that's another interesting statement. Pay attention to that one. Womb. Okay. So the water, the ice, out of whose womb came the ice. The ice that is on this earth today came from a womb. Remember that, because it's going to tell us where that womb is in just a moment.
Okay.
Says the waters are hid with a stone, and the face of the deep is frozen. All right. Now we know today that in the upper areas of the Earth, the northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere, we have sheets of ice that cover the oceans,
Yep.
and the waters are hid like with what ice, which is hard like what a stone. So it
Yep.
says, the waters are hid as with a stone. In other words, something's covering the waters of the Earth, and it's hard like stone. Well, that's ice.
The ice from the ice age.
Yes, and then it tells us it's frozen. In the rest of the statement, it says, and the face of the deep is frozen. So it's telling us right there, the face of the ocean, the abyss, is frozen.
Yep.
It's hid with a stone, like with a stone. In other words, ice sheets now cover the earth where they didn't before. And where they come from? A womb. Where's this womb? The earth.
Yep.
Okay, so this is go back and we find out where when God split the earth open and the water shot forth. So it says, "Canst thou bind the sweet influences?" Now he starts moving into astronomy. Uh, Canst thou bind the sweet influences of Pleiades, or loose the bands of Orion? We know today that the Orion star cluster is a group of stars that play a gravitational tug of war with each other. They rotate around each other,
Yep.
and they're like ripping each other apart, fighting for power around each other. And so that was no way the ancient man would have had the astronomical knowledge to understand that, but we can observe it today, and we know it. It says, "Canst thou bring forth Mazzaroth in his seasons, and canst thou guide Arcturus with his suns?" More statements of the movement of the bodies in our solar system. "Knowest thou the ordinances of heaven?" Now, the ordinances, of course, is the paths, of the things that move in the heavens. "Knowest thou the ordinances of heaven? Canst thou set the dominion thereof in the earth?" In other words, can you explain how the movement of the bodies of our solar system have influence on the earth? Wow, that takes some serious knowledge. Right? "Canst thou lift up thy voice to the clouds? The abundance of water may cover thee. Canst thou send lightnings that they may go?" The rest is basically just other questions not relating to the flood.
Right.
But what we've seen so far in this book is that there are many, I'd say at least what 15 or 20 passages in the Bible relate in that book. I'd say 20 or more related directly to the flood,
Yep.
and explain very thoroughly that one caused the other. First, it mentions that God split the oceans open and that he shut them up with doors eventually, later, shut them up with doors to seal it off. And he mentions the swaddling band, that the volcanic activity, and then he mentions that the result of that is ice age. That is the exact chronological order in which it happened, as given the physical evidence. God splits the earth open, except for the fact that it says that he sealed it. But I think that's a statement of what he had done later, right? So it says he split the earth open. All of a sudden, you have lightnings and wind patterns, global wind patterns, and all kinds of things going on. Global volcanic activity that darken the skies, make the atmosphere extremely cold, opening up the door for the ice age, which has now caused the earth to be frozen on the surface. Amazing.
Yes.
Chronological order as to what explains the ice age. Right there. Bang. Amazing.
Yep. Sure is.
That's my favorite chapter in the whole Bible. I love that because it's so scientific,
Yeah.
and I'm a real science guy,
Right. Right.
I just love it. I don't know if it's my favorite chapter, but it's certainly one of them. I love it because it's so absolutely amazing in the way that it explains the processes that caused the flood and the chronological order. I mean, think about it. If the volcanic activity that spewed unimaginable amounts of ash into the atmosphere, making the atmosphere of the Earth extremely cold, and the amount of I mean, extremely hot water surging out of the earth, filling the oceans, and then causing extreme evaporation because the oceans are now hot, going up into the sky, which is now extremely cold because the volcanoes have filled the atmosphere with ash, and they're blocked out. The sun's blocked out. So the water evaporation from the hot oceans goes up into the extremely cold atmosphere and becomes a snowstorm like the Earth has never seen before. Right. So could that have happened prior to the oceans becoming frozen like a stone, hidden like a stone? Where
No.
no, that would have only have to have come later. See, so you see how this all is absolutely chronological. It had to have happened this first, then that, then the other, and the other. It's completely logical too, because none of those things could have happened prior to the other state or effect.
Yep.
It's God's absolutely coming out and telling us, look, this is what I did to the earth. For you who have an ear to hear, you know, I made the ice age, and it was caused by the flood. And this is what happened first. This ends, then that, then that, and then the ice. Is covering the oceans, and you got ice sheets going across the ocean. Now, something else interesting is how would Job have known that the face of the deep is frozen? Wasn't Job an Israelite?
Uh,
Didn't he live in Israel? So where are there ice sheets in Israel? Come on, really. The
yeah.
face of the deep, now deep, that's the abyss, remember? We go back to the Hebrew.
Yeah.
That word means the very great depth. He's saying the oceans themselves are covered with ice, right? So did Job live anywhere near a place on this earth where the oceans are covered with ice? Did he live in Scandinavia? Did he live in Russia? Did he live around the Siberian? No. Job lived in Israel, it's believed, right? He was probably a Turk or an Israeli at the very least. So he never even traveled anywhere near that. Most people in Jesus Christ's time never traveled more than 10 or 20 miles from their place of birth their entire life.
Right. Right.
So how would Job have known these things unless this was imparted to him by God? These words, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because Job never traveled to the Arctic Circle. I'm sure he never saw northern Sweden or Norway.
Nope.
I don't think he ever went to Greenland. No, I just don't think so. He never saw ice sheets in the Arctic Circle. He had no way of knowing those things even existed,
Yeah.
as did almost everybody on the planet until like what, 1200 AD or something, 1000 AD, right? Probably, right. Most, no, not, except for those that might have already migrated there, like the Scandinavians, which were already up there. But I mean, most people in the Mid East or Europe, lower Europe, they didn't have a clue as to what was up there. The Roman Empire didn't even know there was such thing as an ice sheet over the northern until they had encountered the Germanic peoples who told them about it. And that was centuries after the Roman Empire had found it. So how is Job going to know this, right? No way. No way.
Nope.
It's amazing.
I kind of want to hit back on our heart issue that we were talking about earlier, and this every time I think about this one group of passages stick out to me in Acts 19, starting in verse 13 through 17, and it states, "There were certain vagabond Jews, exorcists, took upon them to call over them which all evil spirits in the name of Lord Jesus, saying, We adjure you by Jesus whom Paul preacheth. And there were the 7 sons of Sebekiah." I'm, pronunciation might be off on that. "A Jew and a chief priest, which did so." So there was a Jew and 7 Jews and a chief priest who were going out and calling demons out in the name of God, supposedly. And one of the evil spirits said to them, "Jesus I know, and Paul I know, but who are you?" And the man from whom the evil spirit was in leaped on them, overcame them. He basically beat them up, prevailed against them, and made the 7 sons flee out of the house naked and wounded. And that right there, if you're not wholeheartedly in this, and you're saying Christ's with you, and you're here to do things in the name of Christ, and that's false. Satan's going to know that. He's going to jump all over you, and he's going to beat you up and kick you out of the house naked. I mean, that's just what it comes down to. If you're not into it with your whole heart, then
Yeah.
why be in it at all?
Right. And God knows the heart. You know, He knows what you truly believe in the core of your very depth.
Yep.
He knows it. Amen. Yep, He knows. I mean, you can't hide it from God. That's the thing. You know, people who argue against the existence of God, they think that they're hiding from God. It's sad because I have to actually have come to pity those people more and more and more,
Right.
and love them. Actually, love them more and more and more because I realize that these people are just sad denialists.
Yep.
It's not that there's any validity to anything they say. It's just that these people are making all manner of excuses for denying that they have a creator, because their heart's not in line with it. You know,
Uh-huh.
and, here's the difference. I think this kind of an illustration makes it very interesting. Let's say a very hard-nosed atheist declares that everybody who believes in God is delusional and blah blah, right?
Mhm.
And then you have a Christian who's a wretched sinner, and maybe even more of a sinner than some Christians, but he's also more repentant, maybe because he sees how filthy he is,
Yeah.
and he cries all kinds of tears to God, asking him to forgive him. And that's what God exactly wants out of someone. He says, "Look, son, I love you because you're so honest with me about
Mhm.
yourself." And so here we've got on one hand, and somebody who gets absolute grace out of God because he's completely open and lays it on the table. Says, God, look, this is me. I'm filthy in your sight, and I love you, and I declare your holiness. I want to be forgiven, and I want to know you, and I want your blessings. I want you to be my daddy. And then on the other hand, we got the atheist that says there is no such thing as a daddy. You're delusional. So you got somebody who's absolutely fighting against the truth, against compared to, in complete irony to that, somebody who acknowledges every bit of sin in their life and is willing to lay it all out before Christ and say, "Look, I can't hide anything from you. This is what I am. Forgive me." You know, and and the contrast between those two is so great.
It's night and day.
It really is. And I find it sad that people can be so hard in their heart that they are unwilling to acknowledge that they need a savior, that their sinner needs to be saved, and to fight against it like that so wholeheartedly and vehemently. It just
It's the influence that Satan has on the world, and my, my heart just hurts for those people, Neff.
I know, and mine used to not hurt very much for them.
Yeah.
But God has been changing me, and I'm starting to feel a lot more pity and sorrow for them than I used to before, and wishing that they would just, give up this pride game and just
Yeah.
come to the truth. That's what it is, though. A refusal to acknowledge that they're guilty before God, because I guess because natural human pride, or a love of sin, or some combination of those two, perhaps. That's what it is, though.
Yeah.
The difference between the Christian and the atheist is humility.
Hmm. Hmm.
Atheists possess none of it, and the Christian possesses it.
Right.
Toward God, anyway. Humility toward God.
Hmm.
Yeah. I've been debating lately about the deity of Christ. What kills me is that there's people who claim they're Christians and deny that Jesus Christ is God manifested in the flesh.
And I have absolutely no idea how you can do that.
I don't know how they do that. But there's a Pal Talk chat room or two where people deny that. They argue it's not true. One of them's run by a guy who says it's not true so bad. He owns the chat room, and if you get on the microphone, try to provide an argument for the deity of Christ, about 7 seconds after you take the microphone, he mutes you. and stops you from talking and then takes the mic away from you and starts talking, ridiculing the crap out of you, and then he lets you get back on the mic. Then you start talking, and about 7 seconds later, you try to provide evidence from Scripture. Look, the Bible says this. And he stops you, he mutes you, kicks you off the mic, and takes control.
He just doesn't want to feel convicted.
Yeah. No, no, it's nothing intellectual about it at all. It's just he's going to rule that room with an iron fist, and you're not going to have you're not even going to be able to make a case because I'll shut you off before it comes halfway out of your mouth.
Right. I mean, you can't call yourself a Christian and believe the Bible 100%, but then say that there's a flaw in it with with the deity of Christ. There's just no way.
No, you can't. I mean, if the deity of Christ is not true, then
In the
the
whole
entire
Bible.
Bible is a lie.
Right, right.
Because it all boils down to the entire Bible is all about Jesus Christ. From the first line to the end, it's all
Yep,
about Christ.
yep.
It makes no sense. And that's what I don't understand about hardcore Jews. You know, the Bible says that God has blinded them
Right.
and they can't see the truth, you know. Boy, that's some serious blindness.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, I've never really understood why he did that, why or how he's doing it. Maybe other people who are more studying on the subject can explain it to me. But I find that interesting that God has blinded the Jews for the time that they can't see the truth, but will open them later.
Yep. I mean, it's just like back with his disciples. You know, Luke 24:45. Even I mean, they wanted to understand. They wanted to know. He that have an ear, let him hear. And verse 45 says, and then he opened their understanding that they may understand all scriptures. If you
Hmm.
want it, he'll give it to you. But
Yeah,
if you constantly deny it, then you're out of luck unless you have a change of heart, which is back to that heart issue.
yeah,
And then he'll give it to you. It's not like he said, well, you can not want it, and then when you decide that you do want it, I'm not going to give it to you based on how you were before. It's okay. You want it. I know you really want it, so I'm going to give it to you.
yeah, yeah. Interesting. I'm going to take another quick break. I'll be right back.
All right.
Okay, back. So, anything else you'd like to talk about, Chris? What's going on
Uh,
in your thought? What else you thinking about?
nothing in particular. Um, but I do want to do something that I don't see is done in your videos quite often for you. I'm going to pray for you, Neff. Is that all right?
Sure.
All right, let's pray. Lord, I come before you now, Lord, humbly as your servant, Lord, and as Evan and I, Lord, have discussed your word, God. We just ask that you'll give us a deeper understanding into your passages, Lord, and that you'll just lift up Evan, Lord, and that he can spread your word throughout all the people that he reaches on a daily basis, Lord, and through his mission that he's started now with these hangouts, Lord, and debating, God. I've heard his content. I'm pretty sure I know his heart, Lord, and I ask that you keep on blessing him and giving him the information and the desire to seek you and to proclaim you, like you've said in your word. In your name we pray. Amen.
Oh, that's nice, man. Appreciate it.
Not a problem. You know, we always talk about the Bible being very detail oriented, and I had some while you were gone, I had something stick out to me that I out of all my years in reading this book, I've never really, this has never caught my eye. But
Yeah.
in Luke 24:39, and before I start that's one thing I like about I love about the Bible is no matter how many times you read something, it's always going to be in a different season of your life, and you're always going to see something else every
Mhm.
single time. It's
Yeah.
something new out of it, and that to me is one reason why I know this is inspired by God because it's the same words, it's in the same order, but every time you read something, you get a completely different viewpoint from it. Um,
Yeah. It's something it's a living
yeah,
book. That's the amazing thing. You're right.
yeah, but it in Luke 30 or Luke 24:39 it says, "Behold my hands and my feet, that it is I myself. Handle me and see, for the spirit hath not flesh and bones, as ye see me." Now, I'm pretty sure I know this, and you know this, but why would he? He doesn't say flesh and blood, and he doesn't say that because his blood was poured out for our sins. There is no more of it; it is gone. He says flesh and bones. Do you agree with that? We must have lost him.
Well, I'm not sure what it means. I'm really not sure.
You know how usually
Flesh and bones.
people
Yeah,
say,
I know about the common the word the term flesh and blood, but I'm not sure why he said flesh and bones at that point. Um, read that passage again. That
sure.
might help me if I ever heard it again.
It's Luke 24:39.
Okay.
Behold my hands and my feet, that it is I myself. Handle me and see, for
Mm-hmm.
a spirit hath not flesh and bones,
Mm-hmm.
as ye see me.
Okay. Well, I mean, on the obvious, he's saying that the spirit is not a physical body.
Right.
You know, anything beyond that, I'm not sure.
I guess it caught my eye. I have the Henry Morris Defender's Bible. It has a great commentary in the bottom of it. And
Hmm.
for that verse, it says, "It is significant that Christ did not use the more common phrase flesh and blood. His blood has been shed on the cross as a price for our redemption," and it references 1 Peter 1:18 through 19. "And now flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God." 1 Corinthians 15:50.
Mhm. Well, the first thing that came to my mind was the statement that God made Eve from a bone of Adam. I don't know if that's related in any way, but I don't see the significance. It would be something I'd like to be interested to learn what that significance is, why Christ mentioned bone instead of blood.
Right.
That's interesting. And it's curious. I'm sure he did it for a reason, but
Right.
what is the reason? I'd be interested to know that. That would be something I'd like to learn. Hmm. You don't have the answer yet, do you? Do you
No.
know? Hmm. Yeah.
No.
Something we can study. Just shows the Bible is always something you can study. You can study it all your life long. Never learn
Yeah.
everything.
No. I don't know. Something to think about. I don't think I have anything specific I want to talk about now. So, I mean, we can switch subjects or go wherever you want to go with this.
Okay. Well, I'm probably going to end the hangout soon. I'm getting tired, and I've got to be up early. Kind of tomorrow morning is need to get up kind of early. But I've sure enjoyed talking to you,
Well,
and
I've enjoyed talking to you. You know, I stumbled upon your channel about a year ago, and I listened to the regularly the ones you post, and just so happened, you know, I didn't have a class tonight for college, and I sat down and saw you were streaming. I said, you know what? I'll just get in and listen to this, and the next thing I know, it was just you and I, and the Lord led.
that's cool, man. I'm glad you did. So I hope I'll see you again sometime. If you find the time and you know I've got one open, just feel free to pop in. I enjoyed it.
Will do.
All right, man. Great. God bless you and have a good evening.
God bless
And
you.
God, good luck with your studies. I hope you are really successful. Turn out to make somebody question what the secular camp tells them. Here's an educated man who's telling you Christ is creator and not Big Bang didn't do it. You know, that's always a good thing. Okay, brother. Well, thanks again, Chris, for popping in. I'm going to kill the hangout now.
All right.
Hope you have a blessed week and drop in anytime.
You do the same, Neff.
Thanks, man.